There are phases in life when it feels like everything begins to fall apart at the same time. Plans that you built with so much care simply collapse. Paths that once seemed safe disappear before your eyes. People you trusted walk away. Dreams that once felt so close begin to seem far away. And then, in silence, that heavy question appears in your chest. Why do I keep losing? Maybe you have asked yourself that question more times than you would like to admit. Maybe you are living exactly that kind of moment right now. One of those periods when it feels like no matter how hard you try, something always fails. But there is a powerful truth that many people are never taught. What looks like loss is often just learning in disguise. Most people grow up believing that life is a straight line between effort and victory. You work hard and then you win. You try and then you succeed. You fight and then you conquer. But real life does not work like that. Real life is full of unexpected turns, painful falls, and quiet new beginnings. And it is exactly in those moments that many people give up, because they believe that failing means they are not capable. But failure is not the end of the road. In fact, many times it is the beginning of the understanding you needed to go further. Think for a moment about how many times you have tried something that did not work out. Maybe it was a project you truly believed in. Maybe it was a relationship you thought would last forever. Maybe it was an opportunity that looked like the chance of your life. When it ended or failed, the feeling was one of loss. A kind of emptiness that is hard to explain. As if all the effort had been in vain. As if you had walked so far only to discover that you were in the wrong place. But was it really in vain? Or did something inside you change during that process? Because the truth is that every experience leaves a mark on who you become. Even when you do not notice it right away. Even when all you can feel is frustration. Every attempt, every mistake, every fall builds something invisible inside you. A different way of seeing the world. A deeper way of understanding people. A strength you may not even have known you had. The problem is that when we are in the middle of pain, it is almost impossible to see that. When something goes wrong, our minds tend to turn the entire experience into a simple label: failure. And when you believe that you have failed, you start to doubt yourself. You start to think that maybe you are not good enough. Maybe you are not strong enough. Maybe you are not capable. And little by little, that doubt turns into fear. The fear of trying again. The fear of being disappointed once more. The fear of believing in something and then watching it slip through your hands. This fear is quiet but powerful. It does not need to shout. It simply whispers small phrases in your mind. Maybe it is better to stop. Maybe this is not for you. Maybe you have already tried too much. And that is how many people abandon their own paths. Not because they lacked ability, not because they lacked talent, but because they interpreted the learning process as if it were a series of defeats. They confused growth with failure. They confused evolution with loss. But here is something that can completely change the way you see your own story. No one learns to win without first learning to make mistakes. No person who today appears confident and strong arrived there without stumbling along the way. No successful journey was built without moments of doubt, failure, and new beginnings. The difference between those who go far and those who stop along the way is rarely talent. Most of the time, it lies in how they interpret events. Some people experience a mistake and say, "I lost." Others experience the same mistake and say, "I learned." And that small difference in perspective changes everything. Because when you believe that you have lost, your energy disappears. Your enthusiasm fades. Your motivation weakens. But when you understand that you have learned something, even if it hurt, something inside you stays alive. A part of you understands that that chapter was not the end of the story. Think about a child learning to walk. The child falls countless times. So many times that if an adult had the same experience, they would probably quit after the second or third fall. But the child does not interpret the fall as defeat. The child simply tries again, and again, and again. At no point does the child think, "Maybe walking is not for me." The child does not turn the fall into an identity. The child does not say, "I am someone who cannot do it." The child simply keeps learning. At some point in life, however, we begin to forget that mindset. We start to believe that making mistakes is embarrassing. That failing is a sign of incapability. That falling means we should have stayed still. And without realizing it, we begin to live in fear of trying. Because trying opens the possibility of making mistakes. And making mistakes, in the minds of many people, feels like proof that they are not enough. But what if the truth is exactly the opposite? What if every mistake you carry today is actually part of the training that life is giving you to prepare you for something greater? Think about it calmly. Maybe what you call loss was actually the experience that opened your eyes to something you could not see before. Maybe that difficult moment revealed strengths within you that had been sleeping. Many people discover their courage only when everything seems lost. They discover their resilience only when life demands more than they ever imagined they could endure. And when they look back years later, they realize something surprising. The moments that looked like failures were exactly the moments that taught them the most. They were the moments that brought maturity, the moments that taught patience, the moments that showed who was truly by their side. If everything had been easy, they might never have developed the strength they have today. There is a powerful phrase that says life is not happening to you, but for you. At first, this idea may seem difficult to accept, especially when we are going through a hard phase. When everything seems to go wrong, when things get out of control, when what you wanted most simply does not happen, it is natural to feel that life is being unfair. It is natural to think that something is conspiring against you. After all, when we look only at the pain of the moment, it seems impossible to believe that there is any kind of lesson or purpose hidden there. But the truth is that many of life's greatest transformations begin exactly in the moments that confuse us the most, frustrate us the most, and hurt us the most. Life has a curious way of teaching. It rarely delivers growth inside comfortable experiences. Most of the time, it pushes us into situations that challenge what we think we know about ourselves. Situations that demand more patience than we imagined we had, more strength than we believed we possessed, more courage than we ever believed we were capable of showing. And this is the point where many people misunderstand everything. They look at difficulties and say, "Life is against me." But with time, when the dust settles and emotions calm down, many discover something surprising. Those difficult moments were preparing something inside them. Think for a moment about the experiences that most changed who you are today. They probably were not the easy moments. They probably were not the days when everything was perfect, when nothing went wrong, when there was no challenge at all. The moments that transform a person the most are usually the ones when they were forced to rebuild themselves. Those moments when life placed them in front of difficult questions. Questions that cannot be ignored. Questions like, who am I really? What truly matters to me? How far am I willing to go for my dreams? These questions do not appear when everything is comfortable. They arise when something breaks within the routine that once seemed safe. When a plan fails. When a path ends. When something that seemed guaranteed simply disappears. And although at first it may look like pure loss, something is happening beneath the surface. Something quiet, almost invisible. Life is reorganizing you. It is reorganizing your priorities. It is reorganizing your vision. It is reorganizing the way you see your own abilities. Many times we ask for growth, but we expect it to come without pain. We ask for wisdom, but we expect it to appear without challenges. We ask for strength, but we hope we will never need to use it. But life does not work that way. Life teaches through experience. And experience almost always involves mistakes, attempts, frustrations, and new beginnings. This does not mean that everything that happens is easy to understand right away. There are moments when you simply cannot find any meaning in what you are going through. Moments when the only thing you feel is exhaustion. Moments when it seems that all your effort has been useless. But even in those moments, something important is happening inside you. There is a silent adaptation taking place in your mind. There is a strengthening happening in the way you think. Every difficulty you go through increases your capacity to deal with the world a little more. The first time you face something difficult, it feels impossible. The second time it still hurts. By the third time, you begin to realize that you are no longer the same person you were before. You begin to react differently. You start to understand situations better. You begin to notice patterns that once went unnoticed. And little by little, something changes. What once seemed like an impossible mountain begins to look like just a difficult challenge, but a possible one. This happens because you are evolving, even if you do not realize it at the moment. The truth is that growth rarely feels like growth while it is happening. Most of the time it feels like confusion, like frustration, like attempts that do not work, like paths that need to be rebuilt over and over again. But if you look back at your own life, you will probably find proof of this. Moments that seemed completely negative in the past, but that later revealed themselves to be important for the person you became. Maybe a disappointment taught you to value yourself more. Maybe a mistake showed you a path you never would have considered. Maybe a failure forced you to develop skills that today are part of your strength. This happens because life does not work only with immediate results. Many times it works with preparation. And preparation means that you may be going through a difficult period not because you are losing, but because you are being shaped. Imagine a sculptor working on a rough stone. At the beginning, everything looks like destruction. Hammer blows, pieces being removed, parts being broken. If the stone could feel, it might think it was being destroyed. But in reality, it is being transformed. Each strike removes something that does not belong to the final form. Each impact brings it a little closer to the masterpiece that is being created. Often our own lives go through similar processes. There are phases when we feel that parts of our old life are being broken away. Old plans stop making sense. People leave our path. Ideas that once felt like absolute certainties begin to change. At first, this is frightening. It feels like instability. It feels like loss. But in many cases, it is simply transformation. The person you are becoming cannot exist in exactly the same way you were before. Some things need to change. Some perspectives need to mature. Some illusions need to fall. And although this can be uncomfortable, it can also be deeply liberating. Because the more you learn from life, the less you depend on external approval. The less you need everything to happen exactly as you planned. The less desperate you become when something does not go as expected. You begin to develop a different kind of confidence. Not a confidence based on controlling everything, but a confidence based on knowing that you can handle whatever comes. This is one of the most powerful forms of strength a person can develop. Knowing that even when something goes wrong, you are still capable of learning, adjusting, and continuing. Knowing that one mistake does not define who you are. Knowing that a difficult moment does not determine your entire future. And when this mindset begins to grow inside you, something changes deeply in the way you face life. Challenges still exist. Difficulties still appear. But you no longer see them as inevitable enemies. You begin to see them as part of the process of evolution. As experiences that, in some way, are contributing to something greater. Maybe you still cannot see exactly what is being built. Maybe there are still questions without answers. But one thing starts to become clear. You are not simply losing. You are being prepared. Prepared to understand yourself better. Prepared to deal with greater challenges. Prepared to build something with more maturity, more awareness, and more strength than before. And when you realize this, even if only a little, something inside you becomes calm. Because you understand that your story is still in motion. You understand that this moment is not the final chapter. It is just part of the journey. A part that may be teaching exactly what you needed to learn to reach the next level of your own path. Because pain, although no one wishes for it, often becomes a teacher that cannot be ignored. It calls your attention. It forces you to reflect. It pushes changes that you might never have had the courage to make if everything had remained comfortable. How many times has something ended and, at that moment, it felt like the end of the world, but later you realized it created space for something better? How many times has a door closed and you thought you were losing everything, but sometime later you realized that door did not lead to the right place? Time has a curious way of revealing the meaning of the experiences we go through. What today seems like a definitive loss may, in the future, reveal itself as a necessary detour. That does not mean the pain disappears immediately, nor does it mean that disappointments stop hurting. But it does mean they do not define the ending of your story. Every experience is just a chapter, and difficult chapters are not the same as an ending. The story of your life is still being written. And maybe, at this very moment, you are in one of the most important chapters of your journey. One of those chapters that feel difficult while they are happening, but later make complete sense. Maybe you are learning something that no easy victory could ever teach. Maybe you are developing the patience that will be necessary to handle greater things in the future. Maybe you are learning to trust yourself more. Maybe you are learning to stand up with more strength every time life tries to knock you down. Learning is rarely comfortable. Growing is almost never easy. But every time you stand up after a fall, something inside you becomes stronger. Every time you decide to continue even after a disappointment, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you imagined. Every time you learn something from a mistake, you transform a painful experience into wisdom. And wisdom is something no one can take away from you. The world may change. People may leave. Plans may fail. But what you learn remains. So before saying that you have lost, ask yourself something important. What is this experience trying to teach me? Maybe the answer will not appear immediately. Sometimes it takes time. But when you begin to look at life from this perspective, something changes inside you. Mistakes stop being enemies and start becoming teachers. Falls stop being proof of incapacity and start becoming steps in growth. And little by little, you begin to realize something powerful. You did not lose. You are learning. And as long as you are learning, you are still moving forward. Even if the steps are small. Even if the progress is silent. Even if no one notices. Because the greatest transformations happen within us long before they become visible to the world. Keep walking. Keep trying. Keep learning. Because one day you will look back and realize that those moments that seemed like losses were exactly the moments that were shaping the person you were meant to become. And on that day, you will understand something that today may still seem distant. Nothing was in vain. Nothing was wasted. Every step, every mistake, every fall was teaching you how to win in a way that only those who learn from life truly can.